Welcome everyone to a casted game of Age of Empires 4, and today spawning on the west side of the map, playing in red, we have got Vortix playing as the Byzantines, and his opponent on the east side of the map, we have got none other than Wham, playing on a Smurf account, no less, but playing as a Japanese in blue. Welcome everyone to Cliffside. That is the map for today, a new map to grace Age of Empires 4 and the new Sultan's Ascent DLC, an interesting map. I think in first instance, when I first saw it, I thought, that's a lot of cliffs, that's a lot of wallability, that's a lot of walling potential, but what I would say as well, the middle paths are open and that is a very direct route. So a lot of the games I've seen on it, this particular map, while some of them have been a bit boomy, a bit campy, some of them have been very, very aggressive. And I think if we talk about the Japanese, they go hand in hand with aggression, you feel, in especially certain timings, like the late feudal age, early castle age, where the Cura storehouse, the farms really start to come online. Not needing that farming transition can be really effective. They can often play a very condensed economy because of that. But we'll see. Japanese going up against the Byzantines. The Byzantines, I think, are a civilization that are still yet to be figured out in many ways. It does feel like they've got sort of a dual identity to them. They've got the Hippodrome that can be very aggressive early on, but they've also got the Grand Winery that does scale pretty well. Gives you that little extra boost of olive oil to get mercenaries out. But we shall see. I would love to see some Hippodrome action. I've got to say, they've got some really unique technologies in there, especially for raiding. And now considering the way the Japanese can often play in the early game, very defensive, obviously depends on the landmark. Again, it's almost like a dual identity with Japanese. Getting the shinobi out with the Cocker Township can be aggressive. At the same time, the Cura Storehouse does lend itself to a bit more of a slow graded economy approach. Alright, we see the Grand Winery coming out for Vortix, so going to be getting some olive oil nice and early. Probably the mercenary build, where we see an early mercenary house, but it remains to be seen. In any case, I hope you guys have been watching on YouTube and you've been enjoying it, because I've been casting a lot of Age of Empires 4 recently. It's been fantastic. I think generally the Sultan's Ascent DLC has come at a perfect time. There was a time, I've got to say, where things were not stale, but they were a bit quiet with Age of Empires 4. There was not a lot going on. Lots of the same meta, same civilizations, same playstyles. But I think 6 new civilizations, 2 brand new ones and 4 variant ones. It's really shaking things up. Hello. What's going on here? I was just going to stone. I thought it was going to try some shenanigans. But that's quite typical for the Japanese, looking to get the daimyo mana. And I would love to actually know from you guys, if you're watching on YouTube later, and on Twitch now, live actually, to be fair. What's your favourite civilization? I was a bit on the fence at times, thinking, do I really want to pick one? I think at the moment, I have no option to say that it is the Japanese. Free farms, what's to hate, and then the daimyo mana boosting up the harvest rate on those farms. It's all about the farms of the Japanese, and what's not to like about that? The Grand Winery will be adding that extra olive oil, 60% from the berry bushes and the olive groves. I think something that's really interesting, I've seen a couple of games for the Byzantines, is that when they go super late game, they can really fare well, because they're less dependent on gold. They can get mercenaries with that olive oil, especially with their kind of Age 4 landmark, which is the siege one. They can get a lot of siege units, again, just for gold, for olive oil rather. Don't have to rely on gold at all. Thank you, Athras, for the bits. I'm not sure if the alert went off there. Hopefully it did. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, guys, I have been streaming a bit more on Twitch, so you might want to come over here at one point, come on live and see how things are going. I'm getting more used to casting live, actually, I've got to say, because obviously I did a lot of it offline, and I was a bit nervous doing it live, to be honest, but it seems to have worked out quite well. Oh, alright, well, there's going to be getting the second cistern there, looking to boost up the water level for the Byzantines, and Wham is keeping a keen eye on what's happening with his scouting. Back at home, is going to go with the Cura Storehouse. Going to be getting those free farms. Bit of a shame on the house there, but the good thing about this landmark, if you can't fit all farms around it, it does gather you some wood as well. There's that first farm coming out. And it certainly should be fine in terms of an aggression perspective and defending, because there's probably not going to be that much in the way of aggression for the Byzantines, at least for a little bit more longer. Well, we might see that change if we see a mercenary house being dropped soon. I think that if there's a time to drop it, it's probably now. It does have the wood for it, to be fair. Question is, he's going for... He's only got 2 villages on stone, so it will certainly just be for the aqueduct system rather than a second town centre. Was looking to build that mercenary house. Oh, Wham, going to try and push that scout away. He's not happy about it. That's a lot of idle time being caused though. Going for that second town centre. Well, he's trying to get it down. On the berries and the gold. It's actually a nice play here. Such interesting. We don't see a lot of two-town center Japanese play, so I'm pretty excited to see this one happen, actually. This is going to be different, guys. This is definitely going to be different, shaking it up things. And I think there's going to be a lot of this, actually, until we really figure out the civilizations, how they play out. And if there are players that are going to be doing it, it's players like Wham. It's going to be players like Vortix. Getting that mercenary house. Change the location of it as well. Oh, I like what Vortix is doing. This is a thought I had for quite a while. Like, trying to get that water level up as quick as possible. Not necessarily for the military production. Not necessarily for the research time. Definitely not necessarily for the Presidium. But more or less for the eco. For the extra villager gathering rate. It's 10% now. It's just about to be increased by 15%. And that's pretty strong. But it's obviously a bit of an investment. But we'll see if that investment pays off. Going to be getting a horseman out onto the field. Just to see if we can punish that second town centre. But I think generally the Japanese definitely do have a heavy infantry kind of identity. We do see those two barracks being dropped there. For Wham. It's definitely something that's a theme for the Age of Empires franchise, especially in Age of Empires 2. Definitely the Japanese known to be a very heavy infantry based unit. Composition for their army. We do see a lot of variability as well. Going to be Honor Geisha. Now this is a unit that I'm a big fan of. I think when I first looked at it, it seemed a bit squishy. But I think generally, especially when it's supported with other units, the attack speed is really strong, and the extra tile of attack range is really important. I think it's really difficult to tell because we haven't had a unit kind of like that. We've had ranged units and we've had melee units. We've never had a unit that kind of changes that dynamic of a melee mosh pit. When you have two front lines against each other, there's only a certain amount of surface area they can fight against each other. Makes it a bit tricky. But the Honor Geisha basically comes in from the back, over people's shoulders, just hacks and slashes from the back of samurai or whatever the front shield it really is. And I think it has another layer of attack, right? The DPS I think that comes out in that fight is really strong. And I think there's a big case to make for Honor Geisha generally in armies. Composition, they're pretty fast to move as well. So they can really dictate the terms of engagement. If you can mass them up, they can cause some problems. Vortix coming out with a ram. So it's going to be playing an early ram push here with the Byzantines. This is weird because it's kind of an interesting one. It's got obviously a good economy with the 3 cisterns and the aqueducts. But now he's kind of going into that ram push. I guess he is on one town centre, which kind of makes sense. He want to try and take care of that second town centre for Wham. But I do fear because Wham's ability to gather food is actually looking quite strong. He's got those 3 farms, hasn't had to spend that wood on those farms. And his food income is looking strong. Like he's getting a good 700, 800 food per minute. And with a production capability that is just about establishing right now, this is going to be tricky. Like the timing window you feel for the Byzantines is pretty close. One thing I would love to see though is the Kyra Siphon. Like this is going to do a lot of damage. It feels a bit tricky to get rid of these. Because of course if you get too close you're going to be burned alive, and I'd love to see how Wham decides to push this away. There's a lot of structures here to get through though. That should buy Wham a lot of time. One thing to bear in mind is it does have hardened samurai. It gives you kind of the vibes of the English and the HRE when it comes to man-at-arms, and I think it's a really strong unit for the Japanese, especially when you factor in you've got the Honor Geisha behind them. Well, do we see that many Honor Geisha? I think it's mostly samurai actually at this point. Oh, this could be an interesting interaction. So the samurai should have that little shield, and looks like 2 horsemen are going to dive in and go around the back to take down the Kyra Siphon as best they can. The archers, they're dishing out some damage, of course. It is still a feud-age unit. Doesn't have iron undermesh just yet, but it is cooking. Wham is going to get the iron undermesh. That's going to change that whole fight, by the way. It really is. The archers just won't be able to do as much damage at all. I say archers. I should really say longbowmen. Now behind this, I think the Japanese are getting Takizaki. This is a really nice upgrade, actually. I feel like generally the Japanese almost draft in some of the best features of various civilizations. So with Takizaiku, I believe the Japanese actually gather faster the berries than say the Abbasid dynasty, or even the Delhi, or even the Ayyubids. And then they get free farms with a boosted farm gather rate. To be fair, you have to pay a lot for that daimyo mana, to be fair, and he hasn't obviously been able to do that, going for the second town centre. Japanese do seem to be a very strong civilization. I think slowly being figured out. Horseman going around the back here for Vortix just to see if he can get some damage out that way. This is tricky because it feels like Vortix might be facing this playstyle for the first time because it's got the two Kyra Siphons but doesn't have the units to really back them up and do some damage with it. And it's always a bit tricky, right? Because it does feel like Wham is starting to build that eco lead and that can become very dangerous. Two hardened samurai, they're going to get caught. Ooh, sends a couple on a Geisha. Vortix does react to it though. Horseman diving on. A couple of the reinforcements coming in. The Honor Geisha should be able to help those horsemen, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. It might need to add in a couple more of units into that fight. But certainly, wow, building up that economy lead. And I do worry for the Byzantines. They're going to need a big push. They're going to need it now because time is running out. Wham's economy is going to really start to scale quite nicely into military production as well. And once that happens, the Japanese do start to get a war machine that's very hard to stop. What might be hard to stop are those Kyra Siphons. Going to be dragging out villages for that. We might need to invest in textiles if he hasn't already. He has got that. It's a good call there by Wham. He's engaging. He's going to get a good raid with the hardened samurai. He's kept them busy. Goes on that wood line. Forcing a lot of the army to stay back home for Vortix. I really like this play, right? Because he's making Vortix commit to units at home. It means that this sustained push in the front is just not going to be as strong. Makes it a little bit easier to deal with. And every little minute that Wham can delay this push. Oh, he's going to be struggling though to keep it alive. It is on fire and he doesn't have enough wood. Oh, he's going to lose that second town centre. But if he can keep the villagers safe, that's what really matters. The trouble is a lot of production are on the front line. Villagers are going to come out and this is perfect. I think this is what has to be done. You've got to wait for the Kyra Siphon not to attack a building so they can't burn you alive. The villagers do come out and take that down. And I mean, whilst he's lost that second town centre, I think it's still a good position here for Wham because he does have the villager lead by 20. And sure, he lost the town centre, but those villagers are going to be staying alive for quite a long time. And the longbows, they're going to be harassed by the horsemen and push back a little bit. I mean, the longbows will win this fight eventually, especially when supported by a couple of horsemen. But the samurai will be taking a lot of those longbows with them. He does have a longbow mass enough to deal with it, but it's going to be dicey, right? It's just buying time. And that's exactly what Wham needs to do. Is going out to Deer Pack as well. Getting that beautiful, beautiful venison food. Question is, where does Vortix go from here? Might still look to be aggressive, but it's going to need to do more damage than he has been able to. Has got water level up to level 4. Well, it needs to do damage on these production buildings, right? I feel like he even can take this out. There's a lot of wood investment there that Wham has left exposed. It's not a real option there. It doesn't have the military numbers. Only 5 on his counter. Has to be careful. There is a window of opportunity for Vortix. If he can do some damage, serious damage now, it will stop that economy scaling for Opa, for Wham, to getting a critical mass of units. But I do like what Wham's doing. It might be feeling like it's a throwaway of units, and in some ways it is. But Wham is never looking to win these fights. What he's looking to do is buy time, and that's all he needs to do. Vortix slowly starting to run out of that time, but he's starting to group up. He doesn't want to waste too many units though, Wham, doing that, buying time. He's got to balance it perfectly. But I think the fact that he has access to hardened samurai does put him in a decent position. Does need to survive the next 5-10 minutes though. You might not have those 5-10 minutes. Villagers do garrison inside the Cura storehouse, and those farms are at risk. We did say earlier on the cast that these farms were okay for a while, but that time has come now where Vortix is trying to pressurize that, and if you can get a couple more Kyra Siphons on the field right now, it might be a bit difficult for Wham to push this back. Does have 15 military units, 12 of them are hardened samurai. But this is where longbowmen become a problem, right? That wood line is pretty exposed. Wham having to commit to some static defenses in the north with an outpost. It should go up in time, but villagers will be lost there on that wood line if he doesn't get rid of those longbows. The hardened samurai do push forward. The horsemen are going to back off and just pull the samurai a little bit away from that town centre fire range. And the samurai are tanking a lot on the front lines. But I don't think this is necessarily enough for Wham. He's going to try and micro those weak horsemen back there, Vortix. And the longbow going to try and kite as best they can, but the samurai are still kind of dishing out a bit of damage, just again buying time for Wham. He's got more production in the south, making sure that if he does lose the production in the middle, that all is not lost. He's slowly pushing that back. It's actually incredible how these samurai, just a handful of them, are pushing back the longbows. Vortix feels very hard committed to this feudal age push though. Sending a couple of horsemen. This is great value, by the way. I mean, sure, he'll probably lose the horsemen in the end, but he's kept a good villager count idle. That's like a third of the economy idle by 2 horsemen. That is huge value. Again, the horseman does go down, but keeping a third of your economy idled is not great for Vortix. Had no choice. He's even taking the boar. I gotta say, I love this play by Wham. It's a little bit risky considering how much pressure he's under, but he's taking a lot of their pocket economies. He's getting the free field off the map. Now he's getting boar and deer. Vortix just hasn't been able to achieve the same, I feel. Which is kind of surprising, really, because he's been all over the map. Speaking of which, villagers and barriers do have to retreat. One outpost is not going to cut it. It's still going to get arrow slits, but... oh, horsemen come in at the right time there for Wham. And I do love this addition of the horsemen, I gotta say, for the Japanese, because there's always a risk that if you do go for heavy infantry-based armies, you never really have that movement speed, that movement capability on your hands, and if you're under pressure like this, you definitely need that. Here come 2 Chirosyphons though, looking to maybe burn in those farms a little bit. Gotta be careful, right? Those villagers do back away. I don't think it's a smart move to move the villagers completely away. Like, there's a temptation to actually garrison inside the Cura storehouse, but if Wham feels like this got to the stage of the game where actually this is the be-all and end-all push, he wants to keep those villagers working for as long as possible. Like, he's going to give up these farms, and that's okay. Because, again, his game plan here is to buy time. He feels confident in his head and villagers. And he's even going to get a raid. I love this play. We see a lot of players do this, and he's going to get value as well. Those villagers on the deer, they are going to be caught with their pants down, and some of them might go down. Does try and get a good surround on them. Might only get 1 or 2. Spearmen are coming out. I mean, it's not the end of the world there for Vortix. Idle time being caused, but I think this is great play by Wham. We talked about how Wham just did such a great job of getting pocket economies, boar, deer, everything. It's mostly because Vortix can't, because he's being denied it. A couple of samurai going to take out the Chirosyphons and push away the longbowmen. This is such a great play, because those horsemen were baited a little bit on the east side, try and take out the economy. And in the meantime, the horsemen are going to dive on that. And that's a fight that Wham could actually win. It feels like he's got the one up on that with the hardened samurai involved. Coming in from the south as well. He smells blood. He's taking care of the Chirosyphon. This could be a good wraparound, a good surround from the north and the south. Wham might take out this army, and if he does, that could be the game, because this longbowman mass is relatively unprotected. Does have a couple of horsemen, but I'm not sure they're going to be faring up against the samurai. It feels like that production speed has really ramped up for the Japanese. We talked about how this is going to happen 20 minutes into the game. The Japanese really come online, and this looks like it could be it. On the sacred site, the Japanese take out the Byzantines on cliffside, showing their power. Wham playing Japanese. I think he's figured it out. The 2-town center could be an option for the Japanese after all. Hope you guys enjoy this casted game. If you're on YouTube, take care and see you next time.